Hello and welcome to episode 28 of the Elevate Your Running podcast. My name is Sarah Mandershad and I'm here with Austin Myers. Hey, Austin, how's it going?
It is going great, Sarah. So happy to be on here recording today. And I think we're going to have a lot of fun with today's topic and discussion.
Yes, today's topic is running myths debunked, and we have our top three that we hear from athletes, friends, the running community, and we're going to dive into those after our elevated moment. My elevated moment over the last week is definitely seeing and spending time with my sister this weekend. She was in town for a concert and it worked out really, really well where we got to spend time together on Friday, and then we got to run together in our favorite park in Denver on Saturday, which was a really great highlight. And we just got to spend some really nice sister time. So it was a really great cup kind of full weekend. And if you saw my stories today, Tuesday on Instagram, you also know that I survived an 8-mile run after an inside tracker blood draw moments before. So highly recommend inside tracker, highly don't recommend running after getting your blood drawn. But I'm here.
You definitely took the path of most resistance today, Sarah.
For
I
sure.
can't say that I would have done that.
It was a good mental strength exercise for sure. After about halfway through, it started to get pretty gnarly quickly. So
What do they say? They say spicy, I think is what is the term
oh,
natoday.
okay.
The little bit
Am
of
I
a
dating
spicy
myself?
finish there. I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah, a little bit
I'm
of a
dating
spicy
myself.
finish.
So
Little bit of a spicy finish. I think the funny part was I ran past an athlete, an Elevate athlete, and afterwards she said, "Oh, I think you were running on Bobo," and I was like, "Oh no." I was wearing a pink shirt and I looked like death.
I'm
But
really
anyways, I'm here.
I'm really happy you're conscious with me, so that we can record this episode. But um,
Same.
I'll definitely look forward to hearing the results of that inside tracker test. I know it's something that we've been diving into, and we had a great discussion on it with Jonathan Levitt last week. So if you haven't heard that episode yet, definitely go listen to it. Jonathan provides a lot of great background information on what inside tracker is. And that supports really why we're partnered with them as a company. I'll let Sarah tell you more about inside tracker here in a moment. But for me, my elevated moment of the week, as we are getting near the end of July, is that I am transitioning kind of from my recovery phase that I've been in for the past 4 weeks since my ultra marathon. And I am beginning to build mileage and volume and getting back into weekly workouts in preparation for the New York City Marathon. So I'm kind of just embracing the incremental growth of mileage and trying to shift that mindset a little bit from just running strictly because I love running and now into the mindset of we have a race to train for and another PR hopefully to be able to chase. So that's part of what I love about running is that you can set goals and you can put a date on the calendar and you can really work towards that date with all of your mind and body. So that's what I'm going to do towards the New York City Marathon.
Oh my gosh, that's so exciting. Have you had a workout yet?
Just little fartlek workouts, nothing too serious, but just kind of getting the legs to turn over again, which is a pretty hard thing to do, especially mentally in summertime when your legs are just used to kind of going at that easy pace. And you see those easy pace miles on your watch, and then to have to shift the mindset to like, okay, well now I need to get the legs turning over and hit faster paces. But Sarah, this, that's the beauty of, a fartlek workout. It's literally speed play. So, not too much rides on it, but you just have kind of some phases of faster bouts of running. And, although you may kind of have I have some anxiety going into some of these workouts early on in the prep. Once you do it, you're like, oh, that felt great. And you just know it's going to come back with time.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like your first like major workout might not feel the best. It might feel a little spicy, but after that, it should feel good and you should be good to go. You gave yourself some really nice recovery time. So really excited for you and what you can create on the streets of New York. With that said, whether you run, ride, hike, or swim, you understand what it means to push harder, reach farther, and go the extra mile. This relentless drive runs in your blood. And that's why Inside Tracker provides you with a personalized plan to build endurance, boost energy, and optimize your health for the long haul. Created by leading scientists in aging, genetics, and biometrics, Inside Tracker analyzes your blood, DNA, and fitness tracking data to identify where you're optimized and where you're not. You'll get a daily action plan with personalized guidance on the right exercise, nutrition, and supplementation for your body. And when you connect Inside Tracker with your Fitbit or Garmin, you'll also unlock real-time recovery pro tips after you complete your workout. It's like having your own personal trainer and nutritionist in your pocket. For a limited time, you can get 20% off the entire Inside Tracker store. Just go to insidetracker.com/elevate your running. That's insidetracker.com/elevate your running. We have a 20% off code, and that code is elevate your running. And you can find all the things that you need to optimize your fall training with that code.
And Sarah is going to have all of that data, and it's gonna be fun for you to look at, Sarah. I know you're gonna put it to good use as you are really, getting into the thick of things with your Chicago Marathon prep. So that'll be fun to talk about here in a future episode. What we're gonna discuss
Absolutely.
today is running myths debunked. And I find the fun thing about a myth is that you don't know it's a myth until you know it's a myth. So what we hope is that you can find, a new running myth, and you can understand that, what, maybe this isn't true. Maybe I need to adapt my training a little bit. Maybe I need to change my approach, because some of the things that we're going to discuss today are important understandings for not only longevity in running and running your strongest and your fastest for years to come, but also just enjoying it and feeling good and seeing what you can create day after day, month after month, year after year. So with all of that being said, Sarah, would you like to introduce our first of 3 running myths debunked?
Yes, myth number 1. I need to train fast to race fast. And this is so not true. We had an episode a few weeks ago all about the benefits of easy running. It is by far our most listened to episode. If you haven't listened to it, please, please, please go back. I think it's episode 25. It was an incredible episode where we talked all about the benefits of easy running and all the things that you can do to set yourself up for success when it comes to training, so you can show up strong, fast, capable, confident at the start of a starting line. So I think a lot of new runners, and I definitely fell into this category, where they get into running and they think all their runs need to be at a hard effort, because if I'm not running hard or if I'm not running fast, how in the heck am I going to get faster? And what usually happens is you see, really elevated heart rates, you see labored breathing, you see injuries. And I fell in that category. I was doing a lot of HIIT running, so really, really fast interval running, and then incorporating some moderate runs on my own, but we're in that gray zone that we talked about on episode 25. And usually what happens is you start to feel niggles, you start to feel like something bigger might be happening. If you're running through that, you're just going to get a full-blown injury. So what we like to, what I like to suggest to the Elevate athletes and to anyone who's open for feedback is, if you are training slow, that's a great opportunity to race fast. And I talk about the pendulum swing with all of my athletes. I have a lot of athletes who do this. The one that comes to mind anytime I talk about the pendulum swing is my athlete, Jason. And He really takes his easy days easy, and he could be running a 9:20, a 9:30, a 9:40 pace on his easy runs, and he just ran a sub 19 5K, which averages, I think it was about a 6:20 pace. Something along those lines. Maybe a
Probably a
little bit
little,
faster.
probably even
Faster.
faster. Yeah, he's
Six.
working down to pretty low in the sixes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm gonna look this up while I continue on. Sorry, Jason, I should know this. It was about a 6:05. Um, yeah, about a 6:05, 6:10 pace. And but he's taking his easy runs at 9:20, 9:30, 9:40. He crushed the Colorado Marathon running, an incredible time there. Averaging around a 3:15, and that average comes out to, I think it's about a 7:15, 7:20 pace for 26.2 miles. So Jason, I think I kind of got that a little bit. That wasn't perfect, so I apologize. But I also ran today after getting blood drawn, so that's going to be my excuse for everything today. That my mind is not really working on all cylinders right now. But the point being is that we get to train slow and we get to have those recovery runs, right? We get to have those runs where we're just going out and shuffling along, or we're running really easy. We're able to have a conversation. Maybe we're calling someone on the phone. We're having a conversation with someone next to us. We're singing. We're doing something just to make it super, super easy. And when you do that and then incorporate your speed work, and you're able to really nail your speed work and really get it in and hit the paces that you need to hit on the track, or in a tempo effort, then you're able, with the ability to taper, to be able to run a very, very strong race, whatever that race looks like for you. So it's a big, big piece to training slow to race fast. And I know a lot of athletes, once they go through a full training cycle, and they really feel it and they see the benefits, they see the pendulum swinging, that they really buy into it. It's usually that first training cycle with new athletes where it's, I feel like for every dollar I had to say, run slower, run easy, I would have, a second house in Telluride. It'd be great. So, um, and, for reference with that pendulum swing, let's talk about my race paces, right? My half marathon time, PR time is a 1:31:01. I think it's averaging out a 6:57. We're targeting about 15 seconds slower for Chicago, which makes me a little nervous, but it's going to be great. And I'm running my easy runs right now at 9:20, 9:30, 9:40, very similar to Jason. We're very similar runners in terms of pace. And it's what we get to do as athletes. Now, you can also go out there and hit every single run really hard, run in that gray zone. But what you're going to do is you're going to sell yourself short. And you're putting all this time and energy into something, and you're not really getting the best out of it. You are getting maybe mediocre results, or maybe you're getting injured, or maybe you're getting burnt out because your body just can't handle that much stress, especially when you are training for a marathon. It's really hard. Austin, I know you can agree with this, like running 6 days and maybe you have a double, so you have 7 runs and you have 1 or 2 workouts. It's really, really hard to run all those other runs fast or in that gray zone because your body's going to shut down. Take it might happen in a few weeks. It might happen in a few months. We don't really know. It all kind of depends on the athlete. But it definitely can happen, and it will happen. So we get to train slow to race fast.
Our training does not happen in a vacuum. We had episode number 6. So this is going back quite a while. One of the first topics that came to mind when we started this podcast was that stress is stress. Training stress, your body does not perceive training stress much differently than it does life stress or work stress or family stress or lack of sleep. And it's important that we understand, especially like you were mentioning, when we're deep into a training cycle and mileage is already higher than what is, maybe our baseline, it's important that we understand that if we don't respect the purpose of any given workout, and if we don't respect the purpose of that day, which for, 4-5 days of the week for a marathon training block, half marathon training block, whatever you're training for, it's important to understand that 4 or 5 days of that week is built towards easy effort running for many reasons, building an aerobic base, becoming a more efficient, stronger runner over time, injury prevention. But one of the biggest reasons that we do it is because stress is stress, and we have to allow our nervous system to recover. We have to allow our body to rejuvenate for the next big effort that we have, which if you're training for a half marathon or a marathon, you've probably got 2 to 3 big efforts every single week. You may have 1 or 2 speed workouts, and you may have a long run. And those are going to be your bigger efforts of the week. But we cannot most effectively execute those workouts if we're not taking our easy days easy. And that is learned through experience for sure. I learned that so much more in my second marathon training cycle than I did in my first. And I know it's just going to be something that continues to be emphasized in my running journey, because it is an amazing feeling to see that you are running high mileage and to feel like you're really chipping away towards the goal, and that you're able to execute those big workouts all because you're taking those easy days easy. And, I don't think we need to dive too deeply into that. Episode 25, which is our episode on easy running, and episode number 6, which is the episode titled Stress is Stress. Those will both be linked in the show notes so that you can reference those for more information. But it's just something that needs to continue to be mentioned for all runners, for all athletes, because we want to perform. We want to run and run faster paces, run longer miles. But at the end of the day, we have to respect our body and what we're putting it through, not only in running, but also in life. And we do that by taking our easy days easy. So that
And
is
you
myth.
mentioned,
Go ahead.
yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah, you mentioned in episode 25, and you mentioned it again today, and I love this, the intentionality of each day, right? Just because we see an aerobic run or an easy run doesn't mean everything goes out the window and we just like go out there and run something that we want to run. Like, do I want to be running 9:20 pace? No. Do
Yeah.
I find it enjoyable now that the mileage is starting to creep up? Absolutely.
Yep.
And it's maybe sometimes doing the things that we don't want to do to be able to reach our goals, and just lean into the intentionality of it.
Yeah. And in building off of that, what I said in episode 25 was that find the pride in the fact that you're taking your easy runs easy. Get the gratification from taking your easy runs easy, the same way that you get gratification from seeing fast intervals or long miles on your key workout days. And I think that's really the key, is when you can say, you know what, no, I want to see that I took my easy day easy. Whether you're looking at metrics, whether you're just looking at how you're feeling both later that day and the next day, just find it as a point of pride, because it's extremely important. And you see athletes, runners at the highest level who are taking their easy runs easy. You do not need to run fast to race fast. There are days for it, but every single day does not need to be at goal pace or faster. That is myth number 1. Myth number 2 states that strength training is not for runners. Strength training is not for runners. Now, I could go on forever. Strength training is for runners. Strength training is for everyone for so many reasons. Now, I will kind of filter my discussion into 2 buckets. Number 1, we can look at strength training for injury prevention. Strength training for injury prevention is probably the most common way that runners apply strength training to their training regimens. And I think rightfully so. I'm not going to get into specific advice or specific workouts that you should be doing, but I can promise you that there are so many resources out there, and that we are going to discuss this topic in more detail in an upcoming episode. But strength training for injury prevention is crucial if you are a runner who wants to continue running, if you want to build mileage, if you want to get faster. It's important that you are taking the steps necessary. You're being proactive in that approach so that you do not become injured. Now, could you get injured? Absolutely. We can all get injured any day of the week, but the likelihood that you will get injured or be impeded or have your progress impeded by an injury is much lower if you just get a strength training regimen that fits your lifestyle. I follow a lot of runners on social media who they've gotten into the habit of either doing, and I'm talking a 15-minute strength training routine.
Mm-hmm.
I think for the most part, they're not even really using weights. Like, they're not going in the gym. They're using resistance bands. They're using body weight. That is strength training. I think that some people believe that strength training can only be done with a barbell on your back, or, a bunch of weight loaded up and you have to lift it. That's not true. Your strength training can be done on a yoga mat in your living room. And I see a lot of runners on social media who do that. They are doing their strength training either immediately before, which I know is a great technique for activation of those muscles that you're recruiting in your running, or they're doing it immediately after they're running. And they're doing that 3 days a week. But that's sufficient. And I can promise you that 3 days a week is going to go so much farther than 0 days a week. I think we can far too easily fall into the belief that, well, if I'm not all in on it, then I don't need to be in on it at all. And with strength training, that is absolutely not true. Anything that you can do as far as building strength in your body, like I said, it can be body weight. It can be some cheap resistance bands that you buy, and maybe you find a 15-minute routine on YouTube. There's a lot of resources out there. But strength training for injury prevention is crucial if you want to continue running, which I think everyone listening to this podcast probably does. Now, the second bucket that I will filter this conversation into is lifting or strength training for power, is the word I'll use here. And what I mean by that is basically you are becoming stronger and you can put out more power as you run. This is something that's actually much more commonly looked at in triathlon, because you can look at basically your output on the bike in watts. And I think it's actually technology that is being put or integrated into smartwatches or wearables that basically you can put in your shoes or on your ankle, whatever it may be. But basically what I'm trying to explain here is that when we're running, we have efficiencies or deficiencies in our stride and in every single footstep that we take along the course of a run. And if we can become more efficient, if we can become stronger, if we can put out more power with each foot stride while not, using excess energy that's not necessary, then we are a faster runner and we are a stronger runner. Consider a hill in a race, right? A lot of people look at a hill and they're like, oh man, like this is going to take it out of me. And my anecdote that I can bring into this is a commitment to strength training will have you looking at a hill and saying, all right, cool. Like, we're excited to take on this hill. And you get to the top of that hill and you feel good. You keep it going. And I think that's important for us to be able to embrace. Now, lifting for strength and power is going to be different than lifting for injury prevention. If we want to approach, our strength training in that way, we do probably need to get into the gym. We do probably need to embrace the fact that we're going to pick up some weight. And the caution that I would put out there, if you're new to this, but you do want to integrate it into your training routine, is two things. Number one, start slow, because consider how you build mileage. We build mileage very small pieces at a time, like 5% per week, right? We're taking the long approach basically to our running. We need to do the same for strength training. And number two is that, a concept that is pretty common in strength training and lifting and that field is basically progressive overload. We apply that to running. It just may not be in the same term, but progressive overload basically means that over the course of time, whether we're looking at it in terms of a week, a month, whatever it may be, we are in some way growing. So maybe we're adding a rep here and there with the same weight, or maybe we're adding weight to the bar. I think that's important that we do take that approach and we say, if I want to be a more powerful runner, am I becoming more powerful through these movement patterns? And I guess that would be the final caution that I would give is technique over everything. Kind of similar to taking your easy days easy. Like if you cannot effectively do the lift, maybe we can talk about, squatting with a barbell. If my form is completely out of whack and squatting with a barbell and I don't feel comfortable, and the day after I squat, I feel awful and I have lower back pain, we need to address the movement pattern first, the technique of the movement. And once we address that and we kind of ingrain that movement pattern into our muscle memory, that's when we can begin to implement progressive overload. We can begin to become stronger. But it's like with running. If you cannot have the basic principle of running your easy day easy, if you cannot have the basic principle when you're strength training of doing the movement correctly, then you're not ultimately going to be getting the benefit that you could be getting if you just focus on the basic approach of it.
Absolutely. You don't want to feel so sore the next day that you can't execute the run, right? Or execute the intention of the day. So if you are feeling overly sore, you get to back off and kind of take a few steps backwards and reset. And maybe it's, using your example of squatting with a barbell, it's just doing some body weight squats and then
Yep.
adding, some weights, and you can do squats with weights and then adding the barbell and going into it. We will have Jason Fitzgerald on the podcast here soon, and he's going to talk. He's the strength running king of the running world, and he's going to talk all about strength running or strength training for runners and the benefits and how we can progressively, build our training plans to help support us in that way of not just running, but with the strength training piece to it. The injury prevention piece is really critical. The resistance band work, all the Elevate athletes get this a few times a week. They're doing clamshells, they're doing glute bridges, they're doing fire hydrants, all these things, all these moves that are going to make them stronger athletes, right? We are, at the end of the day, athletes. We are runners, but we are athletes, and we get to show up as athletes and be able to have, a strong mobility system, really great training, have some strength training aspects with the resistance band and weights. And I would say too, if you are going into the gym, and it doesn't have to be for an hour a few times a week, it can really be 20 minutes, 30 minutes a few times a week, making sure that if you are doing a lot of heavier weight training, that it occurs after your run and you're not doing it before, right? You always want to take like the primary goal. Your primary goal is like an A marathon race, do the A, like, then you get to run first. And then afterwards, you don't have to do it immediately either. You could wait if you're running in the morning, you could wait and do strength training in the afternoon or at night. Some people do it right after, and that's totally fine too, as long as you're giving yourself enough recovery time so the form is there and you're executing and being just intentional with the workout for the day.
That's such an important point to make, Sarah. And I know that something that you and I have talked about a lot is that we can keep our hard days hard and our easy days easy. So that's another point I would stress. If you're if you're strength training 3 days a week, strength train on your harder days. And I know someone
Yeah.
may say, like, you want me to go to the gym after a long run? Oddly enough, I've actually found that going to the gym after a long run feels great if you do it the right way. And if you go in with
Yeah.
the intention of feeling better as opposed to just burying yourself. So, understand the intention of it. Like, we want to strength train for the most part. We want to strength train to feel better. Now that could be feel healthier. That could be feel stronger. At the end of the day, we just want to feel better. So understand that I'm going to go to the gym. My hard days are going to stay hard. I'm going to pair my strength training with my harder efforts of running. And then on the easier days, if you're strength training 3 days a week, maybe you're not going to the gym on those easier days.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're finding time to practice some light yoga or cook a really great meal, or do something like that, which leads us into myth number three, which is nutrition doesn't matter on rest days. And I feel like, definitely when I was younger in my 20s, like I would think and have that mindset of, oh, if I'm not working out today, if I'm not running, if I'm not being active, I don't need to eat as much or I don't need to eat as many calories. And I know as athletes and as runners, we can sometimes fall into that trap. And really, your nutrition actually matters. I would argue the same, definitely, maybe even more on rest days, because rest days are the days that your body is absorbing all the training that you've done over the last six days or the last few weeks or the last few days, depending on when your last rest day was. Like all the Elevate athletes get at least one rest day a week. Mine is on Thursday. So on Thursdays, it's the day for me to slow my roll in terms of movement, but I really get to focus on better nutrition. Maybe it's spending time meal prepping too, to set myself up for success for a great week of eating, because we really need to hone in on eating to fuel our bodies to the best of our abilities and feeling good and being able to execute the easy runs and execute the hard workouts and execute the strength training and eating enough carbohydrates, protein, and fat to support our training.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think this is, a mindset that a lot of people fall into. I know that I have earlier on in my experience with training, and it's that, if I haven't trained today, then I clearly don't need to eat as much today. And you just feel like, you get into a battle of, do I deserve this? And that's a really slippery slope to have
Mhm.
with nutrition, because it's not a matter of, do you deserve it? It's a matter of, what are you doing for your body, the thing that you ask so much of. And, on those recovery days, addressing the myth being, I don't need to eat as much, or I don't need to even, you know, eat. Maybe I'm cutting out an entire meal on a recovery day. Your body, it's a recovery day because your body is recovering on that day that you're taking off from training. When we train, we break our muscles and our tissue down. We've already talked about the stress response of kind of like our nervous system, but there's a stress to our muscles, especially following those harder training days. And I know for a lot of athletes, their full recovery day typically follows the long run day. Sarah, I know that's not the case for your training right now, but that recovery day is there for a very intentional purpose. And if we do not maximize it, then we are not achieving that purpose. And I think that we need to come to the understanding that there's a potential that you're going to eat more on your recovery day, because your
Mhm.
body is like, I need this. And I think that recovery days are an important day to tap into, the mind body connection of, what does my body want from me? Like, what is it looking for? I know that for me on a recovery day, I always want good food. And by good food, I mean something that's going to be nutritious, and it's going to support, the recovery of my body. And I also want a little bit of movement. I think that's an important point to make. And try not to go too far off track here, but like, let yourself go on a walk and then
Yeah,
let
for sure.
yourself enjoy a really amazing meal. Both of those things are going to work together to allow your muscles and your mind to recover. And I think that when we can embrace and go into a recovery day with just as much intentionality as we go into a workout or a long run day, that's where we're really going to, in my opinion, fall in love with the process. It's like, look at all of the different ways that I get to support myself as an athlete. And you're doing a service to yourself by fueling properly, especially on those recovery days.
Absolutely. I mean, how many times have we been there? I mean, I was there a few times this weekend where I was hangry. I got to a point where, like, I needed food stat, and, like, that's not really where you wanna be, right? You wanna be giving your body food and fuel, like, I like to look at it as fuel throughout the day, so you're able to do all the things that you wanna do that day and show up feeling feeling strong for your next run. And that's a big piece to it too, right? We get to fuel our bodies to run strong and feel it. And once you get into a pattern of giving your body what it needs, not just on rest days, but throughout all of training, you really start to see the benefits in your running and you feel really good.
Yeah. Yeah. And the body definitely understands what it needs. And the great part about a recovery day is that there is time that you devote, potentially 6 days a week to training. Okay, I'm
Mm,
devoting probably at minimum an hour to my training 6 days a week. And that can typically, for a lot of us, work up to like 2 hours or more, where it's time that we're spending, time that we're investing into our training. And on a recovery day, that time is now open. How are you going to use it? You can use it to meal prep. You can use it, not even meal prep, you can use it to make an amazing meal that day for you to eat
yeah,
that day in recovery of what your body has achieved that week. And I think that's important that we understand there is an open block of time. And this is where I struggle personally on a lot of my recovery days is I'm like, well, what do I do now? Like I
I
have I
know.
have 2 to 3 hours that I typically spend training in some capacity. And now I feel like I've lost purpose. But the best recovery days that I have are the days that I find a purpose in some other form of service to myself. And I don't want that to sound, self-conceived in any way, but I think it's important that we honor ourselves and honor what we're working
Yeah,
towards and honor what we are taking from our body on these hard training days. And I think that nutrition is a crucial way to do that.
absolutely. It totally is. You can look at it as self-care time, right? I would argue for definitely for me, like running a self-care time. And Um, when you have the rest day, I fall in that same category, Austin. It's like 2, 3 hours in the morning. I'm probably on final surge a little bit more with my athletes, catching up from the week, but also making time to go to the grocery store and figure out, with my rest day on Thursday, it's actually a great day because I get to make a great meal on Thursday. I get to grocery shop for my Friday night meal right before my long run on Saturday to set myself up for success with a really great performance plate. Sports dietitian Kelsey on Instagram is a big believer in the performance plate or the performance bowl. And I totally align with her on this. And if you don't follow her, you should. And it's all about having the performance plate for you for that day. So if you're in a recovery day, you are still eating the carbohydrates, you're still eating protein, you're still eating fat, but you are eating it in a way to support your recovery and to support, arguably, the run the next day. And some people have a rest or recovery day the day before a long run. So you really do need to be eating to support the long run the next day too. And it's not just about that particular day.
Yeah. Final point that we'll make here before we wrap up the episode. Um, you mentioned like the brain fog that can come from being hangry. I mean, that's a real thing. Like we understand that our bodies use nutrition, but I think it's important to understand that your mind and your brain uses nutrition as well. So honor what your body's doing for you, give it the right things, find joy in that process of creating awesome meals and consuming awesome food that's going to serve you so that you can ultimately do great things out in the world and be of service to others too. So, those are our three running myths debunked. Really quickly, we will review those. Myth number one: train fast to race fast. That is a myth. Myth number
Meh.
two: strength training is we need a buzzer. Strength training isn't for runners. That's a myth. That's a
Meh.
big time myth. And then myth number three: nutrition doesn't matter on rest days, and that is a big old myth. So I love it. I think it's
Sorry.
important that we address those things because we all have to grow as athletes over time, and through experience you do learn these things, but if we can help you to learn them a little bit faster so that you can take the necessary steps towards your goals, that's what we're here to do. And we certainly hope that you have enjoyed this episode for that reason. We would love for you to connect with us on social media. If you'd like to connect with me, you can find me on Instagram at Austin Myers Fitness. And Sarah, where can they connect with you and the brand?
Yes, Instagram and Twitter at Sayra, Sayraah, runs happy, and at Elevate Your Running. Thank you everyone for listening today. We appreciate you so much. We hope you have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon.